Okay, and it is 6:30. I will call the meeting to order. I'll note that Councillor Doyle had another obligation, and so he's not able to join us tonight. I will call on Councillor Brown and Sheridan to identify themselves since they're appearing remotely.
Carrie Brown, District 3.
Jim Sheridan, District 3.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of minutes to talk about meeting logistics. Anyone joining remotely, please change your name display to your first and last name so that we can know who we're talking to. And anyone who addresses the council, please start by stating your name and where you live. We ask you to keep your comments or questions under 5 minutes. And if you wish to speak, you must be called on by the mayor. Once you're called on, you may make a statement or ask questions, but get all your points out at once. If you speak out of turn, go on too long, etc., you may be interrupted and asked to adjust your comments or behavior. Before we approve the agenda, I'll point out that item 8, the Sabins pasture discussion, has been pulled from the agenda. Apparently it's not quite ready for prime time, so we may be hearing from the developers at a future date. And there will be 2 changes to the consent agenda when we get to that. And with that, I assume we can consider the agenda approved without objection. All right. Next order of business is general business and appearances. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the council on any topic that is on tonight's agenda or not on tonight's agenda. And comments are limited to 5 minutes. And this is the time that we've set aside for public input for items on the agenda. So if you have any comments on anything that's on the agenda, this is your time to do it. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to be heard? Steve.
This is the one where Doyle's not here to understand the impact, but I can't afford the 5 minutes to tee up an issue that you're going to discuss later and other people are going to tee it up. So for me to use my 5 minutes to tee up the issue and not have any time to actually give you my insight on it is kind of useless. So you're not allowing people to speak during the session is not working. So this is a visual that you can pass around that relates to what I'm talking about. Just restart the clock now. Councilors, proposals for Country Club Road are expected next week. Before that happens, several basic issues are still unresolved. Half of the Country Club Road property sits outside the Act 250 exemption buffer. The state map shows that clearly. That came from the A&R GIS. The city has not asked the state for a jurisdictional opinion on whether Act 250 applies to that portion of the site. Imagine that. So we don't have a formal answer about what rules govern half of the property, and yet we're moving forward as if that question is settled. Second, the brownfield. The property has documented contamination. Prior tests found lead, mercury, arsenic above residential standards. Those exceed what is allowed for housing. That's a little redundant. We don't have a completed investigation showing the full extent and any depth of that contamination. We don't have an approved cleanup plan that tells us what must be removed, capped, restricted, or monitored before residential development. We don't have a clear map showing what land is actually usable and what land is not. Yet developers are being asked to submit proposals with site plans next week. That means they're designing plans without knowing what ground will be approved for residential use. You have to figure out what's buildable first. Then you ask for plans. We're doing it backwards. Third, the master plan and traffic. You can't do a real traffic study until you know what the full project is. We don't know what the full project is because we don't have a master plan. And this RFP only covers part of the property. The rest of the open land, the wooded land and the clubhouse are not part of this RFP. So even if a developer submits the housing plans next week, those plans won't represent the full build out of the site. And without the full build out of the site, you can't measure the traffic volume from half of a project and pretend that it tells the whole impact of the whole. Define the project first, then measure the impacts. Fourth, disclosures. There are no documentation showing that developers were formally told in writing about the active litigation affecting this property, the unresolved brownfield obligations, the fact that Act 250 applicability has not been determined, the absence of a full traffic study tied to a complete master plan, funding limits tied to low and moderate income requirements and federal rules. When the city issues an RFP, developers spend real money responding. They rely on what the city tells them. If material issues have not been fully disclosed, that creates financial risk, liability for the city. And y'all are turning a blind eye to that. Fifth, the spending sequence. We've already spent nearly $500,000 on consultants tied to this property. You're being asked tonight to spend another $30,000 on consultants. We still don't have a city-defined master plan that says what we want to do there before selecting developers. That reverses the normal order. We could have had quite a master plan for $500,000. Sixth, planning authority. At a recent planning commission meeting, members stated on the record they'd been told Country Club Road was on a different track. It was not their lane to be planning. That's a violation of Chapter 117 of Title 24. Y'all, your subcommittee, your council does not have the right to take the planning prerogative of the planning commission and the citizens away and give it to developers and consultants. You just don't. Whether that direction came formally or informally, the effect is the same. Master planning has not been carried out through the planning commission process. The public should participate in shaping that master plan, and we were promised that by White and Burke's first report in 2023, a phase 2 master plan process with public engagement. Seventh, committee oversight. We have a complete streets committee for a reason. It exists to make sure road and infrastructure projects follow safety and statutory principles. We saw what happens when that committee is sidelined in the recent East State Street discussion. Country Club Road also involves road design, access, infrastructure extension, sidewalks, road grade, handicapped access. Those were the lack of those is part of the reason why the Regional Planning Commission voted to table our request for a letter of support last night.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, we're repeating the same pattern. So do your diligence, Mr. Mayor, if it's the last thing you do.
So anyone else would like to be heard? Jim Sheridan.
Yes, thank you. I would like to take this time to address the budget that we just did. Just to give you a little background, that was my 13th budget, more than any of you sitting there have ever done. And so I would like to give a critique of it. It's probably not going to make some people happy, but I'm going to start at the beginning. I thought, personally, that was the worst budget of the 13 I have ever sat through. It was murky, sloppy, misleading. I'm going to start from the top. I mean, Kelly dumps a 11.5% raise on us, which is basically a gift to the staff, putting in all the cuts that were made and other things. And then she bolts. Okay, then we have Sarah, who's just coming in, but really not. She's already gone, but she's still taking part. And she tells us right off, oh, you need to work from the top down. Nobody does budgets from the top down. Certainly, I've worked in businesses, they don't. Nonprofits don't. I didn't in my business. I don't do it in my home life. So you just don't do it that way. It makes it very awkward. So then I'm going to talk about a little bit where it got a little murky. I asked a question about when you had the budget and you had the outside articles and you put them together, it increases the budget. And I was given something about, oh, this is how I was answered. It's kind of complicated. It's hard to explain. No, it isn't. It's numbers. Numbers are very easy to explain. They're finite. They're actual facts. All you have to do is figure out the numbers and give it. They're not abstract thoughts or ideology. So the answer I was given, and then later on, after the budget and we got something from Heather, I saw, oh, there it is right there. You see, when you add in the extra articles, it does go up. And we were kind of misled. Oh, no, it doesn't. It makes things go down. So then there was, obviously when we got to the end, very misleading. We were told something about the school. First of all, we were told, oh, the school budget is much bigger than the city budget. Well, I have a cheap house, $5,500 taxes. $455 was the difference between the two. That's not a big difference. Look at your own taxes and figure it out for yourself. And so then we went to the school bit where it seemed like she had the answer for the school. So we voted on something. And to me, she made it like, oh no, the school has given us their budget and it's this. So we're going to vote on 4.9. Of course, the next day we find, I don't know, 5.5, 5.7, something. We weren't given correct information again. And then there's that angry, bitter rant where she attacked last year's council's members who dismissed Frazier, who made the cuts that she claimed made them all work too hard. Some of us had kind of made it uncomfortable for Kelly, so she left. And it's funny how, you hear a lot of people on the council saying, we don't want criticism. We want everybody to be nice. I didn't hear anybody stepping in on that one. Apparently it's okay for the staff to criticize us. Just like Mike Miller criticized some citizens way back when we were doing the master plan. So no, everybody's open to criticism. When you become a staff or or work for the city or a city councilor, you have a target on your back. And politics can be divisive and have conflict, and that's just life. To me, the whole thing was just murky and misleading. I've been on budgets, 12 of them that were done. Frazier, I will say this, was a master of doing the budget. Made this budget look terrible. I want to talk about a couple things that
Jim, I want to ask you, we limit members of the public to 5 minutes during general business and appearances, and you've taken up quite a lot of time, and we do have other business to get to, so I hope you can wrap things up pretty quickly.
All right, I'll do my best, Jack, but I'm actually a city councilor, but whatever. I want to talk about well, I'll try to hurry it up here, but you're making it hard. I didn't we heard the police chief talking about how we need more members. And we're under stress because of the overtime and put in our face 21 officers for Barry. And then we find out in the paper that we farmed one out for 4 months. I just don't understand the reasoning. I heard him say, yeah, Northfield, though our friends, Northfield's never done anything for Montpelier in my lifetime that I've seen here. I'm going to talk about the fire chief. He wanted 5 new firemen. We're in arbitration and we are far apart on our budgets. We have no idea where that budget's going to fall. So he had no clue what it was going to cost. That is not good management. The other thing I won't say much more. I want to say that I feel sorry for 3 women. For Evelyn, I think it's all falling on her. I had a talk with her the other day and I said, I think you're like the little Dutch boy at the dike plugging all the holes. And she said, that's exactly how I feel. Thank you for noticing that. I want to call out Tanya and say, I'm sorry you're getting all the FOIA requests. And I want to say to Heather, it's too bad that all of the stuff was dumped on you from Sarah. The last thing I guess I'll say is, because I'll make it a little shorter, I will not vote for this budget at the polls. I apologize to the people for not voting for it. I wish I'd voted like Sal. Like I said, kind of got misled, but that's no excuse. So I will not be voting for our budget at the polls. And I got a couple other things to say, but I'll say them in the council time. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jim. Christopher Layton.
Thanks. My name is obviously Christopher Layton. I'm one of the owners of Ondas, a small restaurant down on Berry Street. And I typically don't get involved with these type of things. I really like to sort of live and let live and not stir the pot and whatnot. But, you know, the way that we're going about this whole water main thing is making it nearly impossible for businesses on Berry Street to survive. You know, I would have assumed we've been open for, maybe 2.5 years. And this has happened, I'm going to say 5 or 6 times. So we're on like roughly every 6 months of just surprise, you don't have water, you're on a boil water notice, you can't open. So that's like not a real great way to be able to run a business, specifically a restaurant. We came in on Tuesday to a note taped on our door that just said we would be without water for 16 hours. When I called Public Works, they said that we wouldn't lose water, and we did. We definitely did. So I had zero heads up with my staff, who are all part of the community, to allow them to make other plans or perhaps, pick up work somewhere else or whatever they needed to do to survive. And we had no heads up for any sort of plan either. And when a project is going to be minimum 16 hours, it feels like there should be like some advance notice. And then when I see other projects going forward, like the Country Club Road and everything else, when we don't have a sustainable, infrastructure just to get water into buildings, I couldn't imagine living on Berry Street and having to deal with this every 6 months in my house, let alone my business. I contacted the interim city manager and, explained the case and just how it's not a sustainable way to run business, and it's not a sustainable way to bring more people and bring more businesses to Montpelier. We see them open up and close within a year pretty frequently. We're pretty good at what we do, and I've done this for a long time, and I have other businesses as well. And this is not a normal thing to just randomly not have water. I've kept quiet about it, hoping that it would be fixed, and it just seems like it's an ongoing issue. When I talked to the interim city manager, he, in a roundabout way, understood and suggested that we sue the city of Montpelier. That's not the sort of relationship I'm hoping to have with a town that I'm doing business in. We just went on the record with a bunch of different news sources and media outlets and everything saying that we were excited and hopeful to, help the community of Montpelier grow. But when I'm met with, somebody that's just like, well, it is what it is, go ahead and sue the city. It's like, that's not the solution I'm looking for. I'm looking for transparency and, when the project is going to end and when it's actually going to be fixed. And then to be followed up by, well, people don't want to pay more taxes so that we can fix these things. I would like anyone in this room to tell me somebody that they've met that wants to pay more taxes. It's one of like the most absurd sentences I've ever heard in my entire life. I just think that like before we move on to these big expansion projects and everything else, that like we should fix the infrastructure that we have. And to assume that just raising taxes in the city of Montpelier would fix the infrastructure of the water system on Berry Street is, you know, borderline insane. Obviously, you need to have a relationship with the state and the federal government to fix these things. I'm not a professional in this field, but I've been doing what I do for a long time, and I know that what's happening right now isn't normal. And when I talk to my fellow, restaurateurs and everything else, what should I say? Oh, you should open up a restaurant in Montpelier. There's this really cool feature where every 4 to 6 months you can't open and you lose thousands of dollars. Not a real enticing way to get new businesses into town and to have them stay.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to be recognized? Not seeing any other hands up. Yeah, I would.
So when I spoke with Mr. Lighton, he was asking what manner of recourse there was to offset lost wages, lost income, all of that. And I suggested two things that, there is a possibility that if it was indeed caused by a contractor, he'd contact their insurance and see if there was a settlement available, and the last recourse, they could attempt to take legal action. So that's the context on that statement.
Thanks.
Sure.
In your report, will we hear an update on what's happening with Berry Street? Great, thank you.
Kurt's, I think, going to give us
Kurt's here, yeah.
an update.
Great. Yes. Okay, thanks. Anybody else? All right. Move on to the consent agenda. By request, we're taking items H and I off the consent agenda. And I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items H and I. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, great, thanks. Now, item H. VHB contract amendment. Mike, that's you? Hi.
Mike Miller, Planning Director. I don't know if, I think it was Councilor Sheridan who pulled it. I don't know if we want to start with his questions on that, or if we want to just have me give a quick summary of this.
If you could give an overview, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. So what you have before you for the VHB contract amendment for the build grant is as we've been working through with the subcommittee for Country Club Road, we've been working on a couple of different related pieces, one of which is the community development block grant, the disaster recovery piece. And as we've been working on that grant and working with the state to negotiate those terms, some of the terms have expanded a little bit. And so staff working with Stephanie did some homework, and it came to our attention that there is also a grant called the build grant. So I'll leave the CDBG-DR off for now. It was just the terms have changed. It's not the end of the world, but when they change, they add additional costs. Our whole point of doing Country Club Road was for us to purchase the property to hold the costs down, so that way developers could then build without having to pay for purchasing the property, paying for upgrading the roads. We would be taking care of those or using CHIP to go and pay for those. So that way we would be able to negotiate a more workforce affordable housing that would normally not be affordable because it would cost too much to develop if they had to pay for all those. Now that we add things in like additional LMI, low to moderate income requirements, it starts adding costs back in, and that was not what we were trying to do. It's not a deal breaker, but with an option and an opportunity to look at a second grant, this is a build grant. This is through the Federal Agency of Transportation. It doesn't have those requirements to it. We can ask for the same amount of money, do the same amount of work. The grant application is due almost the same day. the trick is these are, especially the federal grants, get a lot more complicated. And nowadays it's all by scoring. And so there's an entire industry that kind of comes about of being able to be a grant writer and put these in very specific cases. And VHB, who is doing our work for the design work for the infrastructure, also has somebody on staff who's an expert in doing build grant writing. And she's gotten a lot of money for Killington, Winooski, and a couple other communities. And she's kind of a crackerjack at doing these grants. And so we contacted them, and at first they were like, really short. I don't know if we could do this. And they contacted their grant writer, and she said, no, this is an excellent project. Nobody can say it's 100%, but it's got a good probability of being funded. And so I wouldn't come here to ask for $26,000 to help write that grant if I didn't have a reasonable sense that this was a good grant opportunity. We're spending $26,000 to try to access 5. And I recognize, we've heard in other meetings, why doesn't staff write all these grants? Things differ from project to project, grant to grant. Certain grants, you have an expectation, the scoring, the competitiveness is very high. So you really want somebody who has written a number of these to bring in the ringer, who's going to get to that win. And so it's my recommendation here. And Stephanie contacted the subcommittee, and they felt this would be a good thing. Bring to council, let's get a contract, get this on board, so that way VHB could go and work through the details of getting that contract going. So they're going to work on that with Matt. I'm going to be working with our other contractor on the disaster recovery funds. So if we get one or the other, we're in great shape. If we get both, we then have the opportunity to look at which one best fits the model, and potentially could we even switch the DR funding to help a developer who wants to do LMI rather than building the infrastructure to the property. Maybe we could actually flip that into constructing the housing itself. But that's not something we've broached too much with VCDP yet, the Vermont Community Development Program at the state. So we are, but just big picture, if we get both, we'll work and try to see if we could access all 10 million. But that's why we're asking for the funding for the build grant. We think this would be a great opportunity to get 5 million without strings as opposed to 5 million with strings.
Thanks, Mike. Council members, any questions?
Yeah.
No. Oh, Sal, just recognize Sal. I know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Mike, this is a time and expense contract with a not to exceed amount?
Yes, sorry, I should have clarified that. So the way the process works, it's not to exceed. They have a process that they're going to go through, and the first one I believe is to do the cost benefit analysis. And if the cost benefit analysis doesn't pencil out, that's your deal breaker at the federal level. So you have to make that. They're going to work on that first. If that passes, they think it will. If that passes, they'll work on to the next thing. If they get through the CVA and they find it doesn't, we only owe those thousands of dollars, $8,000 or so that it would take to calculate the CVA.
Thanks. Jim.
A couple of questions. Who was the one that put this on the consent agenda?
Me.
Well, I don't know why, because some of us didn't know anything about it. And so you're going to put money on the consent agenda, and it just makes it look like we're trying to slide things through. We've gone through this before. And I have a real problem with this subcommittee. You do not keep us informed well at all, the rest of us. It sounds like you all made this decision, but didn't tell any of us. So 3 of you cannot make a decision. I don't know what you're thinking, but I don't hear much from you at all. And you've been having a whole bunch of meetings. You're sounding like some secret club. And so we have to have this put on the consent agenda. I don't know what it's about. I'm looking at, is this just more money down the rabbit hole that we're throwing up at CCR? And so maybe you ought to make what you're doing a little bit better known to the rest of the council. Or at least, maybe the others don't care, but I want to know what's going on, and I don't like hearing things at the day of the meeting because I have to post something off the consent agenda. So that's why I pulled it off. I mean, and I'm hoping that, the lesson can be learned, that we kind of hear what people are doing. I mean, we talked about committees giving updates. Well, we haven't got many from you guys, so thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I put both of these items on the consent agenda, knowing that if anyone had any questions, they would be pulled off without question. And so that's where we are today. Council members, any other comments or questions?
I just want to note that this came up late last week, like Thursday afternoon, I think, pretty suddenly. So it was something that was handled by staff, and the committee was informed, and we knew we'd have a discussion about it tonight. So,
Anything else? Helen.
So just for clarification, there are some public comments or rumors that the state changed the percentage of the low middle income like number. That's why we are trying to find another grant. Or is it like you explained, this is why we are applying for this grant? So is there any like ground of this comment? We apply for the first one, 3 million, or like the percentage of the...
Yes. Yeah. So the history of the community development block grant DR, as you know, we applied in the August for pre-application, and it was denied because they said we didn't have a developer.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked with them to go through and say, we need to know what your expectations are, because we're going to go out to developers. We're going to put together an RFP. And we went back and forth, and we have in writing their findings that they said, this is what we would expect. And so we put that into ours with qualifiers that said it depends on what comes out, but we expect it to be around 18 LMI units. When we went back, and then after that, we were notified after the deadline for that grant was done that, in fact, that was an error. We should have been allowed to apply, and they apologized that they made that error. We said they intentionally made the second round, partially because they made that mistake in the first round. Not only did they tell us, they told other people in the state. It wasn't that they singled us out. They told a number of other communities, you're not eligible, and then found out, oh, you are eligible. We're going to cut out a pot of funds to continue to help give these other communities a second shot. And so we went back and made this second application. We did the pre-application, very similar to the first application. They said, everything is great. And we said, okay, now let's talk the details. Let's make sure we're all fine, because Prospect Heights and Barry had this condition. Are you expecting us to have this condition? And so we went back and forth, and their attorney said, let's take this back. We're going to go and give you something more complete in writing. So they did that. And so we now have a more complete, and the number from 18 went up to 24. They would recommend that we do 45 because that would give us a better opportunity under CHIP, but the requirement is going to be around 24. But again, for each LMI housing unit that's unfunded, that's usually about $300,000 a unit. So when you talk about 24 units, it might be, we take all the costs away, and now we're asking the developers to build $8 million in low to moderate income housing without any funding. That's a big price tag compared to, say, what would be a much lower price tag. So that was why Stephanie has contacted the developers, and her communication back to us is that they are aware of it and it hasn't been an issue. But at the same time, we do feel that could become an issue, internally when we look at it. those costs get offset somewhere else. So rather than having a lot of workforce housing, you may have to have some higher end housing to offset that $8 million to get your costs. So I think it's just a matter, if it works, if they can make it work with the 24 units, that's great. But if we can also get funding that doesn't have that 24 units, we still have a requirement as a subcommittee in the RFP that says we still want workforce housing. So it's not like a get out of jail free card. They can put whatever they want. There is still the requirement to do workforce and affordable housing. There just wouldn't be a LMI requirement that goes with that.
Thank you, Mike. Maybe it's a repetition for you because I cannot attend the subcommittee meeting. I'm driving by that time and I don't have go back and watch it. So if it's a repetition, I really appreciate your explaining detailedly. It is important to highlight that we did what we were supposed to do. It is not anything from our end. So I think it is good for the public to hear all the details from you. Thank
Yep.
you.
Carrie.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate hearing more information about this. This does seem like a lot of money, and I've been part of writing 3 federal grants, 2 of which I did completely by myself. They were all much, much, much simpler than this one. And you wouldn't believe the amount of work. If you've never done this before, it is an unbelievable amount of work. We cannot do this application without this contract. And so, so I move that we approve item H on the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, I'll call the roll. Adrian,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Jim,
All right,
Ellen,
Yes.
Sal.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We have approved the VHB contract amendment. Now on to item I, approve the fiscal analyst.
Right,
Again,
so-
why don't we do the same thing? Have you give an
Yeah.
overview?
Okay. So the fiscal analyst is an idea that came from the subcommittee, Country Club Road Subcommittee. So we're going to be getting 5 technical proposals with pro formas and staff. That's not something staff reviews on a regular basis. That's not something that the subcommittee has as in their professional background. So it was asked that we have a third party take a look at it and give input to the subcommittee on what they see as elements of each one of the reports. So we put out an RFP really quickly. We contacted 4 firms. 2 of them said they would work on it together, but their availability was outside the time of the window. 1 did not reply, and 1, Crane Associates, had the time and the fee, had the time within their schedule to do this. Their fee schedule was very reasonable. And so their billing rate's $120 an hour, not to exceed 40 hours. So it'd have a maximum of $4,800 exposure. His view was that it could be much shorter than that. It could be, you know, it really, until he gets the proposals, he doesn't know how much there is to review and comment on. But that was kind of the framework he gave. Within my budget, as in the planning department, I have a professional services line, which has $6,000 in it. So this can easily be fit within that. So it fits within my budget to just absorb that cost into my budget.
Thanks, Jim.
kind of same comments. Seems like 3 people made a decision. Not much notice given to the rest of us. I see this. I don't know anything about it. That's why I took it off the consent agenda again. What, put on the consent agenda. Again, get your committee together and start letting the rest of us know what is going on and stop acting so much in secret. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Carrie?
Yeah, I did know about this. I'm not exactly sure how, but I know that this is an idea that's been being talked about for quite a while. This is not a brand new idea that just came up. The idea of having a third party do or have a separate fiscal analysis to make sure that the finances actually are all going to work out was part of the conversation about soliciting proposals from the very beginning. And so I do want to just say that I've attended several of the committee meetings. I did at the beginning when they were first meeting. Haven't done that in a really long time, so I'm not as up on the details. But that's because I haven't attended the meetings or gone back and watched or read the minutes. It's not because they're operating in secret. It's the opposite of secret. They're just as open and transparent as any of the rest of city government, and so that bothers me. And I would like to move that we approve item H on the consent agenda.
Thanks, Gary. Is there a second? It's I. We just did H. So assuming that,
Did I
Okay.
not say aye?
right, thanks, Gary.
Aye.
Thanks, Palin. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Jim, are you voting?
Yeah, I said I.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, fiscal analyst has been approved. Thank you all. We can move on to item 6, report from legal counsel. This was placed on the agenda because there have been there's litigation and there have been a number of questions that have come up. And so council members were wanting to get filled in by our lawyer on what's happening with the status of the case and other questions that come up. And so we placed this on the agenda a few weeks ago, and we have our counsel here. I assume that at this point I would entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to section 1 VSA, section 313 1F for confidential attorney communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the council. Is there a second?
Second.
John, do you have that motion?
Yes, you're fine.
Okay, great. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Hey, Jack, this is Mike. Sorry to interrupt before you move forward. This is the
Thanks,
two-part motion.
Oh, okay.
We do need the finding that the premature general public knowledge of the city's involvement in the litigation would clearly place the city at a disadvantage.
Oh, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
So is someone prepared to make a motion that premature general public knowledge of the advice we're about to get from our attorney would put the city at a decided disadvantage? And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, is there a motion to go into executive session? And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Are we all back? The chair would entertain a motion to come out of executive session. Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, great, thank you. You can move on to the next item on the agenda, public records request summary.
Gonna share our screen here and then we'll get going. There we go. Okay, is that visible to everybody here? Excellent. Evelyn Prim, Acting Assistant City Manager for the City of Montpelier.
And I'm Tanya Chambers, HR Director.
So to get us going, we're gonna, excuse me. So before we get into the meat of it, I just wanted to say, so this is topical for a couple different reasons that were brought up today. In my original role as Communications Coordinator, Government Transparency is my bread and butter. I'm also a member of the National Association of Government Communicators, and in additional to the ICMA Code of Ethics that all city employees follow, we also have a special set of ethics for government communicators that emphasizes transparency in all things that are related. So just wanted to preface that and say that we could not be more enthusiastic about making our city information available to the public. And so that prefaces really why we come to work every day. Originally, that is one of the key pieces of why we even have a communications coordinator working for the city in the first place. So we're really happy to be able to make sure that we are fulfilling all those responsibilities and providing the best public service that we can. So briefly to run through our agenda, and these slides will be published on the website after today's meeting. So you can review them as well and follow up. So we're going to provide a brief overview of the public records request activity in calendar year 2025. We're going to quantify the staff time and resource impacts that those records requests have had, identify some trends and common topics of requests, and provide a wide angle lens and illustrate the diminished role of remaining staff due to the public records requests and other admin tasks. And then we're also going to emphasize some opportunities for improvement and some things that we're currently doing to improve our process. So briefly, what we're talking about is the Vermont Public Records Act. So under 1 VSA section 315 through 320, any person has the right to request, inspect, or the copying of a public record from a government agency. Requests must be produced within 3 business days of the request, but we can request a 10-day extension for unusual circumstances. And so Tanya is going to discuss our public records request by department.
So what this slide is showing you is that the bulk of the public records requests are distributed to both the city manager's office and the planning department. The pie colored in black is showing you that those public records requests, that there are some public records requests that are distributed to 2 or more departments. And you will see too, there's 15 public records requests listed on here for the Montpelier Police Department. Those are really depicted from the time span between January 1st and May of 2025. And that was back when Mary was doing them and she was calculating those or tabulating those public records requests for the police department. The police department now actually they track their own. So you'll see on the left-hand side of the slide that there were 288 police requests. So I didn't want that to confuse you in the showing that there were 15 here. That was just because it was
reflected back when Miriam was doing that.
Sorry about that. Backwards on us. There we go.
So what this diagram is showing you is basically the uptick in public records requests by month. And you'll see a greater uptick in April and May. We believe that that is corresponding with the CCR subcommittee, where that CCR subcommittee was originally formed. And then you can see the additional uptick in October, November, and December, which is when the subcommittee was frequently meeting.
I don't know why it keeps reverting back to the beginning slide. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the quantity and cost breakdown. So as Tanya mentioned, we received 220 requests in 2025. As she mentioned, this does not include the 288 police requests. So that came to about 122.8 hours of staff time. That is the time that is needed to produce the records from the recipient or the custodian of the records. And this, if you were to work this out to a full week, it's about a little over 3 weeks of full weeks of staff time. And then so per city policy, if we were to cost that out at $2 a minute times 122 hours, that works out to about $4,742. So that 14, thank you. So that just to note, that is not the cost that we have recouped. A lot of the records requests are small, some of them are small, so they fall within the 30-minute time window. So we do not charge for those. And some are inspection only, which means there's a difference between producing a copy where the person retains a physical copy, or an inspection, which is not, we are not allowed to charge for. Regardless, the work still needs to be done to produce the records, whether they're going to be retained as a physical copy or produced as an inspection. So we wanted to just illustrate the amount of staff time that works out to be. So then additionally, about 970 hours is the amount of time spent between our human resources director, myself, and another staff designee for receiving, triaging, collecting, organizing, proofing, and transmitting all of the records since May 2025, like as Tanya mentioned, when we took this on full time. And so that works out to be about 24 full-time weeks of staff time. And if you were to do that same cost breakdown, the cost is at $2 a minute is $116,400. So because most requested documents are held by senior staff, they must perform the production of the work, even if an administrator is overseeing the records request process. And so also just wanted to note that the 122.85 hours does not include police time for coordinating their requests. Yeah.
Are the 120 hours included in the total of 970, or are these separate?
Those are separate.
They're separate.
Yes. Yep. So getting to that, we're going to talk about the disproportionate impact on staff time. So what the data shows is the majority of staff time is driven by a small number of repeat requests. Complex, overlapping, or ongoing requests often require repeat staff involvement. So it's rarely just an ask and then a fulfillment. There's a back and forth process that happens. Often we need to ask clarifying follow-up questions so we know the correct record to produce. And between Tanya and myself, we are not subject matter experts in the request itself, unless it's something involving our work. So we often have to clarify between ourselves and as a team, just what we're looking for and where we need to go to find it. And so a cumulative serial impact is significant even when small requests appear small initially. So operationally, tracking and responding to requests is time intensive. as I mentioned, coordinating across departments, and the city manager's office requires just a lot of legwork going back and forth, making sure we're pulling the right information, making sure that we are not inadvertently disclosing confidential information or other things that would not be required to be produced. And because we have 3 days to produce the documents, this interrupts our daily workflow because that takes precedent over other items that we might be working on. So because we are required to produce them in 3 days, other important work may be experiencing delayed. And as we emphasized before, this is compounded when we have less staff than we did to perform the same amount of work. And so our core services are experiencing delays. I'm sorry about that. I don't understand why it's not acting correctly. Oops. There we go, Tanya. Sorry about it. Skipped over that slide.
No worries. This slide is pretty self-explanatory, but what it's showing you is that there was about 40 hours of legal needed for public records requests last year, totaling $6,103.50. I can tell you too that almost all of them are legal that was required from the one requester. So not all public records requests require legal assistance, but because of the one requester, it has created 40 hours of legal that was necessary in 2025.
So speaking to that, I'll go back to that slide.
So what this slide is showing, it's important to note that the data shown in this slide represents data relevant to just one requester, which is inclusive of both the staff time and administrative time. Nearly 71% of all the requests in 2025 came from one individual. Likewise, 77% of the total staff time relating to the public records request is directly related to this one individual. Staff hours are calculated by combining the estimated time to produce the record by the department staff, as well as the administrative time to collect, coordinate, review, redact, and complete the request. For this year, just to note, for this year, as of today, February 11th, we've received a total of 39 public records requests, and 33 of them are from one individual.
So what's not fully captured in the data? These are conservative estimates based on the best of our ability to document our time. So their informal staff coordination time is not included. Often a lot of the times that Tanya and I will have conversations in the hallway related to a public records request, difficult to quantify because we don't have a stopwatch that we just tick on and off. So we're doing the best we can to estimate our time. Email follow-ups and clarifications, as I mentioned earlier, I kind of refer to that as the volley. So the amount of back and forth time that has to happen in order to produce a request, especially in a timely manner, is also difficult to quantify. I had an asterisk here because Mike had a great visualization. I don't know if he brought it with him. So while he's bringing that, I'll explain. So the manager review time, again, making sure that we are not disclosing legal data and that the city manager is fully aware of everything that's happening is not fully captured. And the same thing with our IT support requests.
So Mike Miller again. So this is just 2025, just the emails for planning for my office. Start in January, I had to print these out to go through and collate them. You have to look, because when you get emails, a lot of them come in chains. Right. So you have to look down the chain to make sure there isn't something in there. So print them out, and I dropped it on the floor next to my chair. Did the next one, I did the next one. I said, I might be curious just to see how many I get in a year. This is 2025 from one person from my office.
So Tanya's gonna give you some examples here.
Yeah, so one of the things that was asked the last time we talked about this at council is why can't we just post everything to the website and let that, let whoever is looking for a public record go find it themselves. And what I've done here is provide you with a couple of different scenarios as to why it's not exactly that easy. In the first example, you can see it's the ask is all council to constituent and counselor to counselor communications on the proposed changes to public comment. So what that would mean if we were going to post everything to the website is that you would be posting all of your personal emails to the website, maybe posting your text to the website. So here's an example of why it's not that easy. Example number two. The example number two is where an individual is asking for video requests. In this particular instance, CCR subcommittee video that day and the city council video that day as well. And because we have 3 days to respond to these public records requests, those videos may not be posted at the time that we have to reply to this request. And then the third example is showing you a large date span where somebody is asking for from August 1st of 2025 through August 31st of 2025. And they're looking for biosolids, sewage sludge, disposal, and associated fees for the Montpelier water resource recovery facility. So this is an example where they're looking for a larger date span.
I will mention, actually, there's a typo in this. So the August 1st.
I thought it was earlier.
Yeah, the August 1st, 2025 should be August 1st, 2020. So a 5-year date span. Yeah, I apologize for that.
Okay. So they're looking for a 5-year date span. And so that is another example as to why they couldn't just go to the website and get the information that they have requested.
So what can we do about this? So this is something that we take very seriously, and we have been in the same mindset of how can we be more efficient with our time? How can we use technology to our advantage? And so we have implemented quite a bit that has gotten us to a better spot. Still, there are still limitations to what we can do, but some of the things that we've done is create templates for quick responses. So often, a lot of the time that staff would spend in responding to public records requests are often, it's repetitive. And now that we are doing it over and over and over again, we have a pretty good idea of what each thing needs to be responded to using an SOP for the procedure. So not only have we created an SOP that tracks what needs to happen from the step 1 of a public records request is received to it being completed. And so all of that is now documented. So no matter who is filling these shoes, we can hand that SOP over to someone and they would be able to pick up where we left off. Obviously, there is some institutional knowledge that they would need to learn, but the process is now it's formalized. And so that goes a long way. So systems create structure for sure. And we've also updated our spreadsheet for tracking them. So the types of data that we collect is now very explicit. And so it basically is just in being able to take the data from what we receive and tracking it with a FOIA ID number so that we know which records request we're referring to. Because as we mentioned, we often get 5 or 6 in a day that we're trying to juggle, and it can get pretty confusing depending on the nuances within the records requests themselves. And so that does go a long way. I didn't mention at the beginning, but the Freedom of Information Act, also known as FOIA, is another term that is used for a public records request. And then, so Tanya is actually going to talk about some amendments to the act itself.
Yeah, so VLCT is advocating modernization reforms to the Public Records Act that will help municipalities comply with the law, ensure transparency, and allow municipalities to recuperate a true cost of producing records. Some of those reforms include extending the number of days to respond from 3 or special circumstance 10 to allow for up to 14 days from the receipt of a request. That would be very helpful in giving us time to actually focus on work that needs to be done instead of dropping everything. They're also looking at allowing municipalities to charge and collect the cost of staff time and associated professional costs to produce all the public records, including the time spent in collecting the records for inspection and redaction. So as Evelyn had mentioned earlier, we can't charge if somebody wants to just inspect. And this is a reform that is potentially going to allow us to charge for the time that it takes, even if they're going to inspect it. And then also relief from excessive, abusive, or harassing public records requests that have created excessive public costs and inhibited the ability of the city government to function under repeated voluminous requests. So this would allow municipalities to seek an order of vexatious request in Superior Court, and also upon a court order, relieve the municipality of its obligation to comply with the request and may consolidate appeals under that same action.
So thank you for taking the time and making this an agenda item. We're happy to be able to present it to you, and we look forward to being able to come back next year and providing a summary for 2026.
Thanks, folks. Questions? So
these amendments would need to go through the legislature, is that?
Yes, the LCT is bringing them forward to the legislature.
And what kind of reception are they getting? You know?
It hasn't been, from my understanding and talking with the LCT, they haven't taken it up actively yet. It would be in GovOps, the Committee of GovOps. And we have expressed interest in to VLCT that we would be willing to be able to provide testimony on our experiences, should that be helpful to the committee's discussion. Right now, I believe they're expecting to really go at it more next legislative cycle.
Yeah.
And
well,
the
geez, I mean,
bullet that I had mentioned is one that is already adopted in Maine.
oh, so there's been some precedent on it, yeah.
Carrie?
Yeah, we seem to be spending like a penny on the tax rate on public information.
Carrie?
Yeah, so I know that the state keeps a record of, publishes a record online of every single public records request that they get, who made it, where it was made to, what it was made for. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you've ever thought about doing? Would that be really onerous? Would that be, I'm just thinking it might be helpful to be even more transparent about what those requests are and where they're coming from.
Yeah, so public records requests are able to be requestable themselves. And we have actually gotten a request for that we've been able to provide our spreadsheet. So that is something that we could do, is publish the spreadsheet to the website, and just so then people can see the details of each request and what was asked for.
Yeah, Adrian.
So thank you for this. It's good to have some baseline data and kind of figure out where we go from here. So there was a lot of figures in the beginning. I have a couple questions. So the first one, there was 280 police requests. So, and there was the amount pulled out for legal, which was $6,103. And there was a whole bunch of other dollar figures. So do we know what the cost of the police public request was? I don't know if it was in there because there was.
Yeah, we didn't include that. Chief Nordson would definitely be able to speak to that because they said they keep that record themselves and that all that data.
Like, I would love to know, I mean, just what is the cost to the city, right? So we can pull in legal, pull in police, pull in all those other figures and say, this is what it's costing us, and it's costing your time. And, you know, one of the things that you said in the VLCT was excessive public cost. Like, I want to know what that threshold is. And I think you've been collecting data so we can very clearly identify what a threshold is if they haven't determined it, because we have data. So it'd be really nice to continue to work with VLCT and, I think whatever we can do to support you, because I think this is an abuse of the system and you're not doing what you should be doing, which is supporting our constituents, supporting the city when you're spending so much time on a complete pile of emails and thinking upstream, like, what is the root cause? Like, why are you spending so much time on these public requests? Like, what can be done differently? And I think it's ridiculous. And I don't want my taxpayers' money going to full emails. And I think people knew this, they'd be outraged. So
We
I think it's
agree.
crazy.
And Evelyn and I did extend our willingness to VLCT to testify when the time comes. I don't know if they'll take us up on it, but we're more than willing to do that.
Okay.
I can tell you that the last time I was at the State House, I sat down with our lobbyist and she was very interested in getting this information so we can get it to her right away. And I offered to go over and testify if it comes up, and even after I'm in office, if the new mayor isn't up to speed on some of this stuff, I'd be happy to say this is our experience. And she was very pleased to hear that we have, and I think the league is pleased to hear that there are actual towns that are working on putting together data so that it can support the efforts. Carrie, your hand is still up. Is that just a holdover?
No, I have something else to say.
Okay, great.
Thank you. So again, working for the state, I know that the way that many state agencies and departments handle this is they hire someone whose sole job it is to respond to public records requests. And so I feel I appreciate all of the data that you've given us so we can see how much money we're spending, how much staff time is going towards this, because at some point we might need to say, we have to do this. It's part of the law that we have to respond in this way. Maybe we need to add a line item in our budget simply for public records requests. That doesn't sound like a very good idea to me, but it would be one way to address it. And I think it's important for people to understand that that's how dire things are getting. It's getting to the point where we are spending so much staff time and so many taxpayer dollars on this that we're not getting other things done. And so maybe we need to hire someone whose job it is just to do that. It's hard for me to imagine that would go over very well with anybody, but that's kind of where we are. And so that helps make the case, I think, for reform that's needed in the legislature. And hopefully they will take this up and they will take it seriously and make some changes that preserve public access to information, which is obviously crucial, while not overly burdening individual municipalities who don't have it in their budget to hire someone just to handle public records requests.
Yeah, I think that it is really illustrative in our budget conversations about why we need the admin position in the city manager's office. Fortunately or unfortunately, that person was, and if that position, the budget passes and that position is restored, a significant portion of their time will be spent helping us with public records requests. And when we talk about ways that we can improve efficiency in our time, I think we've said this before, is it is not the highest and best use of department leader time producing public records requests, especially when so much of the time spent is in the back and forth and the emailing. We all were hired to do jobs that are being displaced by the amount of work that this is creating. And so we are really hopeful that being able to get some additional staff will help us in the short term, but then also thinking long term, the amendments to the law is necessary in order to see sustainable change.
Thanks. Folks, are we set on this? Anything else, or ready to move on? Thank you. I really appreciate all this information.
Thank you.
All right, with 10 minutes past our 8:30 break, so let's take our 10-minute break. And minutes, if our council members who are participating remotely could turn on your cameras so I know that you're ready. I don't want to restart until you are. Jim, I see you there. Okay, great. Well, I'll call us back to order. Next up, we have item 9, strategic plan progress update.
So, hello again, Mike Miller, Planning Director.
Kurt Modica, Public Works Director.
So, we got a request 2 weeks ago to go and kind of give an update on the strategic plan and where we are at with some of the items. And with apologies, we put everything together and the cover sheet ended up there, but you guys didn't get the actual spreadsheet that was supposed to be included. So we're gonna get that sent out to you. We're just gonna do an overview and let you know, and we're gonna put it online. We're gonna bring it up on the screen in a moment, so that way you can see it. But for anyone, whether you're in the public or city councilors, if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to give me or Kurt email, and we can try to go and answer any of those questions. So we organized these. It's an Excel spreadsheet. You'll see in the bottom roles and responsibilities, housing, infrastructure, economic development. So we populated the 3 tabs, housing, infrastructure, and economic development. This is exactly what you had approved last year. I haven't changed anything in the table itself. We just added comments on the right column. What we color coded them to was if it's something that we've completed, it's in green. If it's something we're still working on, it's in yellow. And if it's something that's on hold, it's in red. And so some of the highlights, because obviously if there are questions, we can go through them. There are a lot of them that kind of repeat themselves. But some of the projects we're still working on, right at the top, the housing assessment, that obviously is one that has been prominently talked about. We're working on it, and it's estimated to be completed in March. There was also a number of these that talk about reviewing and editing zoning to encourage building. It's kind of difficult to quantify those in this report because we did the interim amendment, which did a bunch of really quick fixes, we know these are quick fixes that we can get done. And now we're doing an extended one. So we completed one, which was to really get all the quick ones done. And now we're working on a longer term one. So it's still yellow, but it is kind of, we could kind of do it a little differently.
So Mike, if I could ask just for interpreting the table, the timeline column, are those periods of months the periods that we originally assigned them to? They haven't been adjusted?
Yes, I did not adjust anything in the table that you guys had put together. So even when it says planned, the 1.1 says planned, but that one is actually in process. And you'll find some others that might be color coded differently. I tried not to adjust what was in that report.
Great, thanks.
Just so you had what you put in there. The only thing I adjusted was we're changing some of the colors. Yeah. Here. So we've had some with the development agreements. This has kind of been replaced by CHIP. So development agreements were done to help housing projects. There's now a state program that is very, very similar to our CHIP. CHIP is very similar to our development agreement. We created the development agreements to help housing projects happen. And then the next year, the state created an identical process, except they allow you to use school taxes. So CHIP is a better version of ours. But so some of these we're kind of amending to go through and say, yes, these will be CHIP rather than the development agreements. Again, amend zoning. Let me see what's the next one I highlighted was 1.2. Complete and implement the short-term. Must have a little more than I thought here. There we go. So under goal 1.2, we had complete and implement the short-term registry. So this is one that we've discussed and talked about. It was recommended by council. The registry itself wasn't implemented, and so it has some technical flaws that we want to try to work out. So it is currently under review with other housing options at the housing committee. So really what we're trying to do at the housing committee, or what Matt is trying to do at the housing committee, is to try to go through and evaluate all of our options. We have a limited amount of time bandwidth. So what's the bigger bang for the buck? Is it doing a vacant building registry, or is it doing a short-term rental registry? Because we don't necessarily have the capacity to carry two registries, two of these. So the housing committee is going to try to understand both of these and kind of come back to council, and we think this may be we may get more housing units working on this avenue. So some of these are ones that are being worked on. And again, you notice the next yellow one down is institute the vacant buildings tax. Again, that's the same, that's the counter to that. We probably can't do both staff-wise, but we can do one or the other. Question, which one would be the most effective? And that's what the housing committee is going to try to sort out. And then that kind of went through a list of them. And then the bottom, we had our key performance standards. And I put in here a number of different things that kind of relate to how many permits have we issued. So actually in these right-hand columns where it says target, I actually filled in, these are actual updates for our where we're at with our KPIs. So we wanted a target of 20 to 30 new housing units constructed annually. What we had for data really quickly was we had 20 net new permits issued for housing units in 2025. So it's not housing units built, but it is a measure of how things went in 2025. We had 20 new permits issued. The partnerships goes through that. And I'm going to go back to that in a minute. And our goal of trying to have them timed. So we had 17 DRB hearings. Are they done in 45 days? We averaged 43 days. We had 3 that were more than 45 days. One of which was a denial that we had to have reconsideration on, and it was later approved. And then we had 2 others that were just over the 45 days. So just wanted to point out, we do have the goal. It just didn't work out for those. And then the last thing I just want to put in for housing is as we get down to the bottom, we have these housing grants and opportunities. And so there was a lot that we got for grants that isn't necessarily work that we did. It's community benefit because CDBG-DR. So Elliott LLC got $4 million to develop 28 units. $5 million went to Down Street for 21 units on Heaton Street, $300,000 for 4 home ownership, $300,000 to continue the Green Mountain Home Repair Program. So I did want to just go through and highlight, this is the first time I can really come back to council and say, we have tried for a long time to kind of set the table and get housing units forward. Those grants would create 63 new housing units. I just mentioned that we've had 20 permits or 20 units that are permitted from 2025 that will be getting built. We also have Isabel Circle, which is a fully permitted project that's just waiting for CHIP. That could be 30 to 50 to 80. So as you start pulling these together, we could in the next 2 years see 110 housing units. That's optimism. That's the first time. I mean, that's not our 75 a year, but that's a substantial growth over 14 a year, which is what our average was. So I think what we have been doing is starting to finally have some effect. And hopefully that's going to build some momentum going forward. So it's the first time I can actually say in the 10 years, I'm optimistic that we're going to be starting to see something. We still have to be patient. It still takes time to build these, but permits are there, the money is there. And this doesn't count Country Club Road. We aren't even talking Country Club Road. This is just what we see for grants, permits, and Spell Circle. And I'll let it go to.
Has Isabel applied for a chip?
They have not applied for CHIP yet. I was doing a little bit of work because of the question on Sabins pasture. I had to kind of drop some things and kind of do a little bit of homework to try to get an understanding of the CHIP process. So they're going to have to come to us. I think it's something that they're working on the background information.
Yeah.
And we have been in touch with Gabe, but he hasn't specifically said, I want to initiate the application. But I think he's got all the, because it's a fully permitted project, I think he's got all the things he needs to apply. He's in a good place.
Great thing.
Okay, so I'll give a brief update on the infrastructure side of the strategic plan. Really, I was planning to speak about what I think is what I think the public and maybe council is most interested in is paving and water lines. But I also just wanted to touch on communication because one of the members of the public raised that issue tonight. So that's the first one I'll speak to. That's strategy 2.1.3. So in communication on large projects. So I think East State Street is a really great example of success on that front. We we did message boards to tell the public about that meeting. We did door-to-door notices. We did social media, and the turnout was really impressive. I think the public really got an opportunity to speak on that large project, and I just wanted to sort of highlight that, and that's why I put it in green. I think even despite limited communications coordinator support, we were able to do that with with support from our administrative staff within Public Works, as well as our crew, deploying the message boards. Also, specifically to the Berry Street water leak that we had yesterday, I'll just kind of tell a story of that because I think that was one of the interesting one of the topics folks are interested in tonight. So we discovered the leak on Friday. It was really cold on Friday, and but we dug it and found that the leak was on a fitting that no longer exists. So this Berry Street is 14-inch water main, really quite a large water main, and it's one of the primary feeds from to the city from the water plant. There's actually two water mains on Berry Street, one on each side of the road. There's a 14-inch on one side, a 10-inch on the other side, and for the most part, the services are, on each side of the road. The 10-inch has all the services to the buildings on the south side, and the 14-inch on the north. So almost all of the properties on the south side maintained water, but we did provide notice to both sides just because there are anomalies, and it turns out the restaurant that spoke earlier, the restaurant owner that spoke earlier, they are one of 3 buildings on that side of the road. And unfortunately, they lost water. But anyway, so we couldn't repair it Friday because we didn't have this part that's no longer made. So we had to get parts from Massachusetts to do it with modern fittings. So this fitting that was leaking is a sweep, so it's a long curvy bend. Modern fittings are now either 90 degrees, 45, or 22, or an 11 1/4, so it just cuts in half each time. So we had to excavate out a longer distance in order to kind of make the angles work, and we, like I said, we had to get the fittings first. So once we throttled the leak down over the weekend, Monday was also really cold, but we also had to finish collecting all those parts. As soon as we had the parts and had a contractor to help support the work, because there's frost in the ground, so you have to hammer out the frost in order to make the repair. Then we did the public outreach. So that if you recall, the city council adopted a flow chart on how we communicate water leaks, and we followed that flow chart, which includes door notices in this case, which is a very extensive shutdown. So this was all the way from Main Street to Granite Street. none of the valves on this line there's only one valve and it's broken in that whole stretch. Generally, you want a valve at every intersection. So that is one issue. How extensive the shutdown is because the valves are no longer operable. But our notice was door to door, so we had staff go to every property in this stretch to notify them of the shutdown. We did VT alert, citywide VT alert in this case, and social media. So from Book Forum, the website, the Facebook page, and so we, I think we made a really good effort. I did speak with the restaurant owner as well, and he hadn't, he just hadn't signed up for the VT alerts or notify me. So he didn't receive that message, and he wasn't, he doesn't live at the property, so he didn't see the door notice. It's just sort of worst case scenario. But he did give me his email, and we're going to get him signed up for that. So hopefully we'll be able to provide him better notice in the future. So just continuing down the path of what happened with this repair, we did not plan a boil water notice. There are specific rules within the water supply division where if you are able to expose the water main before you cut it so that there's no chance of water entering the water system, you don't have to do a boil water. And that was our plan. And at the same time, we were going to have the contractor dig that and our crew dig a valve, dig the broken valve and replace it with a new one so that we could do it all in one shutdown. Unfortunately, the contractor, while excavating, hit the water main and it broke, and that triggered the boil water requirements. So that again was a VT alert and social media postings about the boil water requirements. And it also required us to further support the contractor in doing the work. So we excavated down around the valve, but we did not have the capacity to support the now active leak as well as put the valve in. So that remains excavated currently. Then we proceeded to work on the repair, and it turns out that the valve on Main Street is also failed on the 14-inch. So then we had to extend the shutdown limits. And once again, another VT alert to notify those new properties that were impacted along Main Street. And that's from Berry Street to the fire station. So these things are tricky. They're unpredictable. We're doing our best to get the word out as situations change. And, I think we, all things considered, we did a pretty good job with it, given the challenges that we're facing. So we were able to repair the leak. It ended up being, almost 20 feet of pipe. This is an area that's leaked before, and we were able to make the repairs. This leak last Friday was in a different location further, just 5 feet away from the previous one. So we were able to make that repair. The system, that area is on a boil water notice. Currently, we took samples this morning. We plan to lift that hopefully around noon tomorrow. And that will, again, we'll go out through VT alert and social media to alert everyone that that's back off. The boil water is no longer in effect. And now we have another shutdown planned for tomorrow morning at 9:30 to cut that valve out. Seem to be, we're already excavated. We really need a valve so that in the future, we don't have to do these massive shutdowns on Berry Street if we have another problem. And also, while folks are on a boil water, it just made sense to get this work done. So that's our plan tomorrow, is to get that valve in. I think it will go very quickly because it's already excavated. Just a couple hours, I'm hoping, but we're planning on 4 just to be conservative. So I guess, that's kind of Berry Street in a nutshell. It's just the system is old and, it's challenging to make these repairs on, particularly in this main, it's very large. This main was built in like the early 1900s, so probably around 1903. So it needs to be replaced, and we do have a plan to replace it. So the bond vote in March includes this section of Berry Street. The challenge we have in replacing water mains is staffing. We can't retain engineers. The private sector pays more, and when we hire engineers, we are generally losing them in 6 to 12 months. So I will be talking to the new manager about, a strategy to hopefully retain our engineering staff, and that's probably going to require higher salaries. So in light of that, the approach to do these, Berry Street's very high density, so it's a hard project to excavate and do all these services. And again, that's very impactful to the community there. And it also takes a ton of staff time to do these large projects. We're seeing on East State Street. All of the 4 engineers that we do have, including myself, we're all working on East State Street to try to get it through on different aspects of it. So our approach to the bond is to do trenchless water main replacements. It is less staff time. It's less impactful to the community. There are, different sorts of challenges with it. In that we haven't done them before, so it's a learning curve. We have to develop new specifications and contract documents in order to accomplish it. But there are companies out there that essentially do turnkey projects where they will do the excavation. They'll do, there's really 2 techniques. It's either pipe bursting, where you pull a new pipe inside the old one and it breaks it apart as you pull it, or you can line them, which is likely what's going to have to happen on Berry Street because it's so shallow. You can't really pipe burst it because all the soil will kind of move up to the surface and impact the roadway too much. So likely we're going to line, and the budget numbers within the bond, we got quotes from a company that does this type of work. So we're fairly comfortable with what we've budgeted for this if the bond passes. So the lining is basically an epoxy liner that you put in and cure it with steam. So you have to set up a temporary water system. You got to connect all the services to the buildings and still to do it, and then switch them over after the pipe is lined. So it's still a lot. It's not easy, but it's a little less staff time, and that's where our biggest bottleneck is right now in replacing the water system is we don't have enough people to manage this work. So I'll end on Berry Street. That's just kind of an example of how our real world just this week ties into strategic planning and what we're doing to try to meet these goals. So moving down to paving. I'm just going to drop down to the KPIs. We're about to end here. Paving is more on the good news. So under priority 2, key performance indicators for paving. Our goal annually is 2 miles. That's sort of the steady state target for the amount of paving to maintain a PCI. This last year, we got 3 miles paved. So we actually well exceeded, by 50% what our goals are. That was really done through a lot of overlays. So that's kind of the least cost method to pave a road, is you just leave what's there and pave over it. It's also the shortest lifespan of a paved road. And we selected those roads on areas where the water mains need to be replaced, but we don't have it in our water plan for several years. 7 years is the expected life year of an overlay. And so we tried to line that up with when the water project's going to come. So when the pavement starts failing in 7 years, that's when we're going to do the water main, and then we can repave the street. So we're really taking a very strategic approach on our paving. That allowed us to get a lot of paving done. That's not always going to be the case where there's not a ton of candidates that are going to line up like that. The other method to get a lot of paving done is the cold in place recycling method. That's what we did on Town Hill last year. That has a very long lifespan. You need good utilities under it to make it's also very expensive. But it's kind of similar to the trenchless water line replacements in that there's not a lot of staff involvement. Generally, those are turnkey. They do the structures adjustments. They come in, they grind it, they grade it, they pave it. So there's not as much staff involvement. It's at a higher cost. But that is really only in areas where you have good utilities. And also it has to be long sections. You can't do, they won't mobilize the equipment. It's not economical to do short sections of roadway with that technique. And then moving down to the water line replacement targets, we are behind, again, largely staffing, but also because of the flood. DPW also had to, put all the streets back together and all the culverts that washed out and all those things. So we basically stopped doing infrastructure for a year and a half, all the projects, East State Street, the wastewater plant. And we, the 4 engineers that we do have were all focused on flood recovery. So we didn't hit our target in water. We were able to get one project done. It was done in-house. That was Bingham Street last year. It's about 450 feet. Our target's 2750. Really, the reason for that gap is that East State Street didn't move ahead. It was supposed to move ahead 2 years ago, and we've been just dealing with the emergencies and not able to address the infrastructure that we'd like to. And then finally, just about water leaks, it's kind of at the bottom. Our goal, there's no one more motivated to reduce water leaks than the Department of Public Works. It's, and they're always in the winter. It's cold, it's miserable for the crew. And it's it's a lot of effort on the administrative staff as well to do the communication part, as well as coordinate contractors and yeah, just getting the work done. But we did make a small improvement over last year in the number of water leaks. In 2024, we had 29. 2025, we had 7, so 2 less. On the flip side, though, we did have an increase in boil water notices. So sliding down here to the end. So we had 12 boil water notices in 2024 and 14 in 2025. So 2 less leaks, 2 more boil water notices. I do think that the number of leaks is a little bit skewed because we had a pump station repair project that sort of changed the hydraulics of the system while we were in construction. So the 2 pumps are connected in a way where water could pass through one and sort of relieve pressure. When we're doing the pump replacements, we had to cap that off so that there was an increase in pressure spikes while we're doing that work. So I'm hoping both pumps are now replaced. We did one in 24 and one in 25. And I'm hopeful that now that that's done, we will not have that increase in pressure spikes, and we'll see a pretty decent reduction in water leaks next year. Well, that's it for me. I'm happy to take questions.
Council members, any questions? This is so comprehensive. I really appreciate this. This is this is good to have this in place right now for new manager and mayor to come in and say, and they will have a really good overview of where we stand with all these ambitious goals we've set. So
the short answer on for economic development, I won't go into a lot of it. That's the 3rd tab. A lot of that was delayed. As you know, Josh, who's our economic development quarter, left in May. This came out in May, and so it says, well, priority 1, hire a new community and economic development coordinator. But we could check that box. We've got Matt. He's doing a great job, but he's also coming in from away. He's also learning and kind of getting an understanding of Montpelier and what are the opportunities. And I know a lot of you have worked with Matt, and so you'll see he's got working on a lot of connections. He's working with Montpelier Live, going to the business association meetings. So and basically trying to get an understanding at this point. We reformed the housing committee, or you formed the housing committee. So he's staffing that and kind of helping them get their feet wet again, because it's a new committee with a new chair. And so there isn't a lot of progress in here, and the KPIs for economic development are a lot of things that are pegged to stuff that you won't see for 12 months. So they're just releasing now the 2024 data on various economic development, labor stuff and how many jobs are created. So we won't know 2025 until we get to, late 2026. So some of these will be delayed, but I think the metrics are there, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It is very important to me to understand where we are at. So it's a great summary. I just want to ask, because we just started using this template, right, as a council, after working in different approaches. So I'm just wondering your experience. Do you think this is working? Because we used to have another template for the strategic planning, annual one.
Yeah, I think as I was going through it, I think there are a few things that could get cleaned up and clarified in what the target is. I had a couple of these that I had some question marks on as to what specifically was the strategy. Is there ways we can kind of reduce the redundancy in it? Like, you go through and they are organized by goal. So sometimes this strategy applies to this goal and this strategy applies to this goal. I think there are things that we can work together on when we do the new one, the new strategic plan, that we can say, are there format tweaks that we could do that would help clean this up or not?
Yeah.
But by and large, I thought it was good. Some of the KPIs can be tricky, and I think we can talk about what would be an easier thing. Like I said, we don't really have track the housing completed. We kind of track housing permits. And that's what's been tracked over the years. So if we want to see how we're doing over the years, I can look at the annual report from 2013 and it'll say we issued 14 building permits for single family homes. And so you have a nice baseline.
Thank you.
So I'm guessing, Mike, that you use this as a reporting tool for us and not so much as a day-to-day operating tool. So you've probably got your own view into your to-do list.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this was with Kelly, and I think we went through and did make sure we could go through and mark these things. Like there are different ones where we would have a meeting where she would go through and say, the strategic plan said we were going to do X. We're going to developing a certain strategy. It's like, okay, are we working on that? It's like, well, it's that one's currently on hold, but we're working on this. It's like, well, okay, well, we've got to make sure we maintain that is something we're going to pick up because it is in the strategic plan. We have to go be able to recognize that we may not be working on it now in October, but the strategic plan is expected to go through June 30th. So we can't put this off forever. We've got to decide when we're going to start that initiative because it is on your strategic plan, or we're going to have to come back to you to say that that's just not based on X, Y, and Z. It's not going to happen. And maybe some of that, as you review these and look at what are the things on hold, you might be able to go through and say, actually, that's pretty important. And you can let Kelly know, new Kelly know, that this is a project that's been on hold. It is something important to the council that we really want to elevate this to make sure it gets up there. And sometimes there just may be things, as we mentioned, that it's just difficult right now without the manager's office fully staffed to be able to execute something. So I just have to say that that's going to wait. If we're not forgetting about it, it may just have to wait till later in 2026 when we've got the capacity.
I just want to make one more note that I forgot to mention is that we did just get awarded $1.7 million in earmark funding or congressional directed spending for water line improvements. Yeah, so that's exciting. Every bit helps. That's one
great.
one road.
Yeah, we also got one for we put in one on behalf of Down Street for elevating 87 Elm Street. So Elm Street, it's the North Branch Apartments. They're the large buildings. 87, there's 87 and 89. 89 was built newer and it was elevated, so it didn't flood. 87 was an older historic one, and it flooded and it tipped over the oil tanks, and so it's been substantially damaged and needed a lot of work. So we put in $2 million and got awarded $1.45 million for that project. They didn't expect that money was coming. We didn't expect that because we put that in a while ago for them, but we were also awarded that one. And I think they're now trying to figure out, because they're actually actively in the process of trying to decide what to do with the building. Do we demolish and rebuild? Do we elevate the building, or do we retrofit the first floor into non-residential? So that way, if it floods, we're not displacing people. That's the key that we're trying to focus on. Is when that next flood happens, I want to see that we aren't displacing residents. We may have a lot of work to do cleaning up. We may have a lot of work helping our businesses, but we don't have people who lose their possessions and have to find homes and get relocated. So we're trying to prioritize getting people up and out get the businesses. So this is part of that progress is Downstreet will be working on a process of figuring out what to do. But they did get 1.4 million, which is a nice surprise.
Well, this is great because I know that we were told by our delegation that these were being put in, but we were not at all optimistic that it would turn into actual dollars coming into the city. So this is excellent news.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll make sure we get I don't think the one that we just sent out had all Kurt's notes, so we'll make sure we get the correct spreadsheet out to you first thing.
Great. All right. I think this is the point at in the agenda where before reports where we're open again for public comment, if there is any public comment.
I probably would have had some if we'd seen the spreadsheet in the packet.
Okay. Council reports then. Start in the room here, Adrian.
So Sal and I are going to tag team our update. So first, Jim, thank you for bringing that up earlier about the subcommittee. We will definitely strive to be better at providing updates. I did look, we had 2 meetings in January, which I think one was very quick. I can't remember that one, but I think it was a very quick meeting in January. But we did have a very good meeting yesterday. So there is a lot to update from yesterday's meeting on the subcommittee. And so I did want to bring you all up to date and share some important dates that are coming up to put on your calendars. And so we will be working with Evelyn on a communication strategy to put together like a packaged presentation once we get the developers' proposals, which are due on the 13th, right? 18th. Okay. So we have the developers' proposals are due on the 18th.
So we from today.
Yes, yeah, we're going to tag team this.
Yeah.
Yes, it was just yesterday, and I'm trying to look at my notes. So which is exciting. So we could have potentially up to 5 proposals from developers, and we'll be going through those and putting together a presentation on the highlights from those proposals. And that those proposals will be shared with, presented to the Planning Commission, the Housing Committee, the Rec Board, the Complete Streets Committee, the Parks Commission, and I plan on going to the school board meeting on March 4th. So everyone gets the same information on their proposals, hopefully very relevant, very timely, and informative. And these proposals are to be informational and also to gather feedback. So we'll be working on an input form that'll be put up on our website that will be gathering, do people like these proposals? What do they not like about these proposals? We're going to be working on what data we want to collect from the public and if we want to segment our audiences. We will also have a video that will be presenting the proposals. So we're trying to, look at all different ways of sharing this information to the public because people absorb information differently.
One of the reasons we'll provide a sort of a summary is that there's confidential information in the proposals, a lot of financial information, resources, that sort of thing, that the developers would rather not disclose to each other. And so we will make as much available as we can, but there are some items that we just need to keep confidential.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, so that's why some of that information will have public. Our goal is to have the website input form live by the 20th. We're going to have a big push from communications during town meeting day. We'll have a table out in City Hall so people can come. We have to decide what we're going to present, what we're working on next. We don't have the proposals yet, but there'll be an information table for people to come and look at the proposals, and we'll have the website input form for people to provide input. And then we will have a listening session, which is scheduled for March my gosh, what day is it?
March 12th.
March 12th. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm the one that scheduled it. March 12th at Montpelier High School in the cafeteria from 6 to 8. And we're working on those logistics. But we really want the public to come out, look at the, the PowerPoint presentation, look at what we can share from the developers and really get feedback. And so it's gonna be a big push to get people out that day. I'm gonna be working with the school folks to see if we can get childcare. Because I know it's a barrier for some, so stay tuned for more information on that information session. And I'm sure I forgot some. So that is my council update. I will.
Yeah, no, you covered most of it. The proposals are pretty long, and I expect them to be pretty densely packed with information. So we're going to try and present it in a way that highlights the sort of similarities and differences between the proposals. We'll attempt to answer questions that people have, but we really see it as a session where we take feedback from people, because we're going to try and get this presentation out prior to the March 12th meeting, or at least some of it, so that people can start to review it and develop questions and comments. So we're looking forward to hearing what people have to say. We're especially interested in what our city departments, commissions, and committees have to say. We've got a lot of good people working on those committees, and we need their input. So we're really looking forward to that. There's been kind of a lull since Christmas, but I think things will pick up after next Wednesday when we get the proposals. We have a couple of months really to review them. We're expecting to deliver a memo to the full council by mid-April. So if all goes well, that'll be the timeline. We did extend the deadline, I think, for a week or maybe for 2 weeks. So we got some requests from a couple of developers to see if they could have a little more time. And since it didn't affect anything on our end, we granted that, and that's why we're set for next week. So yeah, we hope everybody comes out on the 12th. There'll be reminders between now and then. So.
And just a quick, this is for the development of Country Club Road. So this could be our new neighborhood for Montpelier. It's very exciting. And, we're going to see what these 5 developers have designed. Like, what is it going to look like? What do we want? I hope people get very excited about this and see the pictures and see all the different ideas and come out. And, I really want to put some excitement around this and know that this is really a really positive thing for Montpelier and that this could be our new neighborhood. So we'll definitely share more as we get it and as we kind of pull all this together. As I said, our meeting was yesterday, so this is hot off the press here. That's it.
Good thing.
Thanks, guys. This is an exciting development. Finally, see where we started a few years ago with deciding whether we're going to buy the property or not. Now, seeing some concrete ideas of what could be there.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of detail in these proposals. Yeah.
Palin?
Yeah, after this, just great news. I don't know what I can share, so I will only mention one thing. I was planning a couple of things happening around us, but I will go with congratulations, American Olympic team. And 3 athletes are from Vermont, and all of them got medals. So it was very nice, very impressive seeing them doing winter sports, which is not my thing. So yeah, 3 Vermonters, they did a great job.
Carrie?
Just sort of a non-update update. The Housing Committee has a subcommittee that's looking at vacant buildings ordinance possibility. And just letting you know that subcommittee is working and collecting information, finding out legally what we can and can't do, and hope to have something to bring to you. I'm not going to promise when, but before too long.
Great, thanks. Jim?
Thank you, Adrian and Sal, for your updates. That's very nice. And an update about the homelessness task force. We only had 4 people at the meeting, so couldn't get it. We're trying to change the time so it's not on Wednesdays, because it's kind of a pain to have it. It always seems to work out on a council day, and so we're trying to change the time, but we're really, having a hard time getting quorums. So I think maybe if we could have some advertisement, maybe if Evelyn ever catches up, to put a little advertisement for members for the homeless committee. Because before we know it, it's going to be March and April, and we're going to start having people come in. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Mayor's report. I think I just have one thing that I'll mention today. Mary Just Skinner didn't live in Montpelier, but for many, many years, she had her office downtown on State Street. Mary was the 47th woman sworn in as an attorney in Vermont. So, and that was in the early 1970s. So that really is striking that I still know women lawyers who are still practicing and are in that list of first 100 attorneys. Mary died in January. I just found out about it today. Mary came to Vermont. She worked at Vermont Legal Aid. She spent 14 years as a great member of the state Senate, very progressive Democrat, did a lot of work for the kind of, the powerless and disadvantaged. And it's just sad news that Mary's no longer with us. And that's all oh, wait. I think, I'll mention the local option tax thing too, although I think our manager is also mentioning it. We've heard that there are people in Worcester who also have the 05602 zip code who are getting charged local option taxes for mostly for online purchases, Netflix or Amazon or anything like that, because and we're working with the state to address that. But anyone, if you're talking to anyone in Worcester who's complaining about this, the city of Montpelier is not doing this. The tax department is the entity that collects those fees and taxes, and we're not getting the money, and it's going to be fixed. And that's all I've got. City clerk report.
Yeah, ballots are in for town meeting day. Envelopes are in. We just got 130 or something like that ballots out the door today. So come on in, give us a call or drop us an email, or come to the website with a form, or go to the state My Voter website. All those are all ways you can request a ballot. After you voted, remember we have a drop box in the back if you don't want to put it in the mail, which I have sympathy for, or if you don't want to drop it in. But yeah, so come on out and vote.
Thanks. City manager's report.
So I'll piggyback on what Jack said about the local options tax. Evelyn's working on getting information on the website that will include contact information for the state tax department, which is where people need to go with grievance on this. So our new city manager, Kelly McNicholas Curry, will be joining us next Tuesday. And Evelyn and I wanted to express our gratitude for all the grace and patience that you council have shown us, all the support, both from the community and staff and leadership team. it's been a tough job. We couldn't have done it without everything that you guys have helped us with, all of you. And we're really looking forward to welcoming Kelly McNicholas Curry to join the team, lead the team, and we're all gonna lean in and support her to the very best of our ability and ensure her success and consequently Montpelier's success. So thanks for your patience.
Well, I want to express my personal gratitude to you and Kelly, or you and Evelyn, for coming in to do this, because it was a tense moment. There were a lot of things going on, and this is a big job. And you guys have had to contend with a lot, and you've done great with it, and I really appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
And I think we're done. It's an early night again, 9:40, and we are adjourned. You all can stay in the room if you want to, but I'm not.